Choosing only three quotations for this poem was really hard. Oh my gosh. But if you love David Rubadiri's An African Thunderstorm as much as I did, I'm sure you can understand why. The problem is the layers of literal and figurative meaning that are beautifully overlaid in this poem. It's like layers of delicious cake. And who doesn't love cake? There are basically two themes which run parallel to each other in this poem: nature's impact on mankind, and the other, politics and colonization. Of course, I'm the one who said that I would narrow it down to three, and so I've selected three quotations which pack as much impact as they can into your analysis and into your appreciation for the poems. So let's get into this storm. The first of my three quotations to memorize would be, "From the west, clouds come hurrying with the wind." And this is one which I love for a variety of reasons. Literally, we can perceive in our mind's eye the visual and kinetic or movement imagery of the erratic clouds advancing toward us from the west. And figuratively, we can put that cardinal point of west into a cultural context as a political ideology. Finally, the concept of hurrying clouds is a really good example of personification because clouds would need body parts such as legs in order to hurry, and those they just don't have. Quote number two is probably the one that I have to hate the most because I loathe insects, and locusts are really high on my list of paranoia inducing insects. The winds brought on by this storm are described as like a plague of locusts, one of the most destructive insects that you can find. And the word plague reminds me, of course, of the biblical plagues in the book of Exodus. So our three language tools here are the biblical allusion, the use of like to create a simile, and of course, visual imagery. Figuratively, I'm thinking that the colonizers are possibly alluded to like locusts because these are marauding plaguers, marauding insects who leave nothing in their path, in much the same way that most people would say colonizers came to territories, took treasures, and left very little behind. Now, this one catches my attention for third quotation to memorize. It's, "The wind whistles by and trees bend to let it pass." I love the use of alliteration in the words wind whistle. I love the concept of the wind whistling as personification, but also there's some onomatopoeia in there, depending on which you choose to define. And of course, this line is repeated twice in the poem, and repetition often achieves emphasis. In terms of the theme of politics and colonization, I think of these trees as symbolic of those members of African or other colonized communities who would have willingly and excitedly invited colonizers in. Those colonizers are the hurrying wind. The trees would have bent themselves in reverence, in deference, in obeisance to the powerful and inescapable winds. And so I know I said three, but I told you in the beginning that this was really hard to narrow down. So in this line, pregnant clouds ride stately on its back. I love the depiction of weighty, overladen clouds, which are possibly pregnant with destruction, the concept of metaphor, the personification, and of course, the depiction of a storm as a stately royal, much like the lady in the top right hand corner, who waits on no one. And so that's that. Three quotations which you should memorize to execute in a variety of essay situations when answering questions for CSEC English B on An African Thunderstorm. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Ray, and I teach English. Take care.